She had one scar for every wolf she rescued. The ceremonial blade glinted in the torchlight as the Alpha King's enforcer pressed it against the servant girl's shoulder. Lyra didn't flinch. She'd learned long ago that showing fear only made them crueler. "Strip her," the Alpha King commanded from his throne, his voice cold as winter stone. "Count every mark. If she bears the brand of treason, she dies at dawn." The crowd pressed closer, their breath fogging in the freezing air of the moon trial grounds. Lyra felt dozens of eyes burning into her as rough hands tore at her worn servant's tunic. She kept her gaze fixed on the cracked stone beneath her knees, refusing to give them the satisfaction of her tears. The fabric fell away. Someone gasped. Then another. The whispers started like wind through dead leaves, building to a storm of shocked voices. Lyra's back was a canvas of scars, dozens of them, maybe hundreds, each one a different shape, a different story. They crisscrossed her skin like a map of suffering, silvery white against her pale flesh. "Silence!" The Alpha King rose from his throne, descending the steps with predatory grace. Darius Ravenclaw was everything an alpha should be, tall, powerful, with eyes like molten gold that could command armies with a glance. Those eyes now fixed on Lyra's exposed back with an expression she couldn't read. He circled her slowly, studying the marks as if they were written in a language he'd forgotten how to speak. "What are these?" His voice had lost its harsh edge, replaced by something that sounded almost like confusion. Lyra lifted her chin, meeting his gaze for the first time since the trial began. "Scars, Your Majesty, just scars." "Don't lie to your alpha." Her stepmother's shrill voice cut through the crowd. Morgana pushed forward, her painted face twisted with malicious satisfaction. "She's been marked by dark magic. Everyone knows it. She consorts with rogues, practices forbidden healing. These marks are proof of her corruption." "Their names," someone called out from the crowd. An old healer stepped forward, squinting at Lyra's shoulder. "Moon Goddess preserve us, each scar is shaped like a name." The Alpha King moved closer, so close Lyra could feel the heat radiating from his body. His finger traced one of the scars on her right shoulder blade, a touch so gentle it made her shiver. "Read them," he ordered the healer. "Every single one." "What do you think happens next? Comment below if you think the Alpha King will recognize any of the names. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more supernatural romance stories." The old woman's hands trembled as she began examining the marks. "This one says Ronan." She paused, looking up at the crowd. "Ronan Ironhide. He was wounded in the border raids 3 years ago. Everyone said he'd die, but..." "I lived." A scarred warrior pushed through the crowd, his eyes wide. "There was a girl who came in the night. She treated my wounds when the healers had given up. I never saw her face, but I remember her voice." He stared at Lyra. "It was you." The healer continued, her voice growing stronger. "Isla Silvermoon, Garrett Stonefang, Freya Nightfall, Julian Ashwood." With each name, another wolf emerged from the crowd, alive, healthy, impossible. Children she'd pulled from burning buildings, warriors she'd dragged from battlefields, mothers she'd saved during difficult births. Lyra kept her eyes down as the list grew longer. She didn't want their gratitude. She'd never wanted anything except to help, to use the gift the Moon Goddess had cursed her with. "Why?" The Alpha King's question was barely a whisper. "Why would you do this?" She finally looked at him, really looked at him, and saw something in his golden eyes she'd never expected: pain. "Because someone had to. Because you and your council were too busy building armies to notice the wolves dying in the shadows. Because every time I asked for help, for resources, for anything, I was beaten and sent away." His jaw clenched. You don't remember. I know." The bitterness in her voice surprised even her. Why would the mighty Alpha King remember a servant girl begging for medicine? But they remembered. She gestured to the growing crowd of wolves she'd saved. "Every single one of them lived because I chose their lives over my own comfort, over my own safety." The Moon Goddess's covenant had been clear the first time Lyra had saved a life. She'd been 12 years old, small and weak even for an Omega, when she'd found a wolf pup trapped in a hunter's snare at the bottom of a ravine. She climbed down, her hands bloody and raw, and freed the creature, only to feel searing pain across her arm as the first scar appeared, burning itself into her flesh in the shape of a name. A voice like moonlight had whispered in her mind. "Every life you save will mark you. Every name will be written on your skin. This is my gift and my burden. Choose wisely." But Lyra had never been good at choosing wisely. She'd chosen again and again to bear the pain, to wear the marks, to be called cursed and broken and wrong, all so others could live. "There's one more," the healer's voice cracked. "On her lower back, it's deeper than the others older, the name is," she inhaled sharply, "Darius." Wait, did she just say Darius? If you're as shocked as I am, smash that like button. You won't believe what happens next. The Alpha King stumbled backward as if he'd been struck. The color drained from his face. "No, that's not possible." "You know it is." The words came from Lyra unbidden, 15 years of silence breaking like a dam. "You were 8 years old. Rogues attacked your father's convoy on the northern road. Your guards were slaughtered. You ran into the forest and fell into the frozen river." Darius's hands were shaking. "I remember blood, screaming. Someone pulled me out, but when I woke up in the healer's tent, they said a guard had saved me. They said the girl who found me had died of exposure." "They lied." Lyra's voice was steady now, even as tears finally traced down her cheeks. "I was 7, an Omega child no one would miss. I dragged you 3 miles through a blizzard to the nearest safe house. By the time I got you there, I couldn't feel my hands anymore. The scar appeared that night while I was unconscious. When I woke up, your name was burned into my skin, deeper than any mark before or since. And they sent you away." Understanding dawned in his eyes, followed by anguish. "They saw the mark and thought you cursed me, so they beat you and threw you back into the servant quarters. I was given extra kitchen duties for causing trouble." She smiled without humor. "But you lived. That was all that mattered." The crowd had gone completely silent. Even Morgana's hateful expression had crumbled into uncertainty. Darius dropped to his knees in front of her. The mighty Alpha King, ruler of the largest pack in the northern territories, knelt in the dirt before a scarred servant girl. "I've been searching for you for 15 years, in every pack in every territory, asking about a girl who saved a boy during the massacre. And you were here, right here the entire time, and I..." His voice broke. "I let them call you cursed. I let them treat you like nothing. You didn't know." "I should have known." The anguish in his voice made the crowd flinch. "I should have recognized you. Your scent, your voice, something. Instead, I walked past you every day and saw nothing but another servant." Lyra reached out tentatively, her fingers brushing his cheek. He leaned into the touch like a man dying of thirst. "You were a child who survived a trauma. You're not responsible for..." "I'm responsible for all of it." He caught her hand, pressing it against his face. "Every beating you endured, every scar you earned while I sat in my comfortable throne and ignored the suffering around me. You saved my life, and I repaid you with cruelty." The old healer cleared her throat softly. "There's more, Alpha King. The moon goddess's mark, it only appears on those she deems worthy of her gift. But there's a second part to the covenant, one rarely seen." She studied the scars carefully. "When a healer saves their fated mate before the bond manifests, the mate's name burns deepest. It's the goddess's way of marking destiny." "Fated mates," Morgana's shriek cut through the tension. "That's impossible. He's the Alpha King. She's nothing but a cursed Omega." "She's my mate." Darius stood, keeping Lyra's hand clasped in his. "She's been my mate since the moment she pulled me from that river, and the moon goddess has been waiting for me to be worthy of her." Lyra felt it then, the bond she'd kept locked away in the deepest part of her heart, buried under years of pain and survival. It unfurled like a flower in sunlight, connecting her to the man before her with threads of gold and silver. She gasped as emotions not her own flooded through her. His anguish, his self-hatred, his desperate hope, and underneath it all, a love so fierce it made her knees weak. "No," the word tore from her throat. "I refuse it." "Hold on, she's rejecting the mate bond." Comment YASSS Queen if you're Team Lyra, and make sure you're subscribed with notifications on because this story is about to get intense. Darius's face crumbled. "Lyra." You don't get to claim me now just because the bond says you should. She pulled her hand from his grip, wrapping her arms around herself. You want to talk about suffering, about cruelty? I saved 73 wolves, Darius. 73 lives at the cost of my own body, my own peace. And every single time I came to you, to your council, to your healers, to anyone who might listen, I was turned away. Beaten, told I was worthless. She gestured to the crowd of wolves she'd saved. I asked for funding for a clinic in the lower quarters. Denied. I begged for access to the medicine stores during the plague. Denied. I pleaded for someone to investigate the conditions in the servants' wing where children were dying of cold. Denied, denied, denied. Her voice rose, carrying across the silent crowd. You know what your head healer told me the last time I went to him? He said, "Why would we waste resources on an Omega who bears the mark of dark magic?" And when I tried to treat people anyway, when I snuck supplies and risked my own safety, you, she pointed at Morgana, at the other nobles lining the trial grounds, you had me whipped for stealing, for insubordination, for daring to suggest that servant lives mattered. Darius looked sick. I never authorized. You didn't have to authorize it. You just had to not care. The truth of it hung in the air like smoke. Every time I was beaten, you were somewhere in this palace. Every time I went hungry so I could feed the children who lived in the same quarter, you were eating feasts. Every time I bore a new scar, you were training warriors for wars we didn't need, while your own people died of preventable causes. She turned to face the crowd, her voice ringing clear. So yes, I saved you all, and I would do it again because that's what the moon goddess calls me to do. But I will not accept a mate bond with someone who only sees my worth now that it's been publicly revealed. I will not tie myself to a man who needs a magical connection to recognize my humanity. Then what do you want? Darius's question was broken, desperate. Tell me what you want and I'll give it to you. Anything. I want you to earn it. She met his eyes, letting him see all the pain, all the strength, all the fire she'd kept hidden for so long. Not because the moon goddess says we're fated, not because I saved your life, but because you choose to be worthy of the bond we share. She turned to Morgana, who'd gone pale as death. And I want justice. Not just for me, but for every servant, every Omega, every wolf in this pack who's been treated as less than nothing. I want the system that allowed this cruelty to be torn down and rebuilt. Done. Darius's voice carried the weight of absolute command. Morgana Blackthorn, you are hereby stripped of your title and lands for conspiracy, abuse, and attempted murder of a pack member. Guards, take her to the cells. Morgana's screams echoed as she was dragged away, but Darius's attention never left Lyra. I'll call a full council tomorrow, he continued. We'll review every policy, every law, every practice that allowed suffering to flourish while I was blind to it. You'll have your clinic, your supplies, your voice in every decision that affects the welfare of this pack. That's a start, Lyra said quietly, but it's not enough. Then tell me what is. She took a breath, feeling the weight of 73 wolves watching her, believing in her. I want you to remember what it feels like to be powerless. I want you to walk through the servants' quarters, sleep in their beds, eat their food. I want you to feel the cold that seeps through the walls, to understand the fear of not knowing if you'll survive another winter. For how long? As long as it takes for you to truly see us. Not as subjects or servants or problems to be managed, but as wolves who deserve the same care and protection you give your warriors. Darius nodded slowly. I'll start tonight. And one more thing. She stepped closer to him, close enough to see gold flecks in his eyes. If I accept this bond, it will be because you've proven that the man you are now is worth loving. Not the Alpha King, not the powerful ruler, just Darius. The boy I pulled from a frozen river because every life is worth saving. Something shifted in his expression, a crack in the armor, a glimpse of vulnerability. I was so sure you were dead, for 15 years. I carried the guilt of your sacrifice. I told myself I'd build a strong pack in your honor, that I'd be the alpha you died to save. He laughed bitterly. Instead, I became everything you would have hated. I became my father. Then don't be your father. She touched his face again, feeling the bond hum between them. Be better, be the alpha this pack deserves. He turned his face into her palm, his eyes closing. "I don't deserve another chance." "No," she agreed softly. "You don't, but I'm giving you one anyway, because that's what healers do. We save lives even when they're not worth saving. We hope they'll prove us right." When he opened his eyes, they were wet with unshed tears. "I won't fail you again." "See that you don't, because next time there won't be a bond to save you. There'll just be me, and I'm much scarier than any moon goddess." A surprised laugh broke from his chest, the first real emotion she'd seen from him beyond anguish. Around them, the crowd began to relax, the tension slowly bleeding away. The old healer approached, bowing to them both. "The trial is concluded. The accused has been found not only innocent, but worthy of the highest honor. Lyra, bearer of 73 names, savior of the pack, will you accept your place among us?" Lyra looked at the faces surrounding her. Warriors she'd patched up in the dark. Children she'd taught to survive. Mothers she'd helped bring new life into the world. They weren't kneeling, weren't bowing. They were simply there, present, seeing her for the first time as she truly was. "I will," she said, "but not as Luna, not yet. First, I have work to do." She turned to Darius. "You have your mission. I have mine. I'm going to build the clinic I always dreamed of, train new healers, make sure no one in this pack ever suffers needlessly again. You're going to fix the systems that broke us. And maybe, if we're both lucky, we'll meet in the middle as people worthy of each other." He nodded, understanding dawning in his eyes. "How will I know when I've done enough?" She smiled, a real smile, the first in years. "You'll know, because I'll come to you not as a servant or a mate bond obligation, but as a choice. And when I do, you'll be ready." "I'll be waiting." He stepped back, giving her space. "For as long as it takes." Will Darius prove himself worthy? Will they finally accept the mate bond? Keep watching to find out. And if you're loving this redemption arc, give this video a thumbs up. As the crowd began to disperse, as her saved wolves came forward to thank her, as the moon goddess's light bathed the trial grounds in silver, Lyra felt something she hadn't experienced in 15 years. Hope. She bore scars so others could live. 73 names written in pain and sacrifice on her skin. And the deepest one, the oldest one, the one that had started everything, that name belonged to the Alpha King who was finally learning what it meant to kneel. Not in submission, but in service. Not in shame, but in growth. Not to a Luna, but to the truth that every life is worth saving, including his own. 3 months later, when she finally came to him, it was snowing. Darius was in the rebuilt servants' quarters, teaching young Omegas how to read by firelight when he felt her presence. He looked up to find Lyra in the doorway, no longer wearing servants' rags but simple healer's robes, her scars visible and proud. "I choose you," she said simply. "The man you've become, the alpha who listens, the wolf who remembers what it means to be saved." He stood, crossing to her with reverent slowness. "I choose you back, the healer who bears 73 names, the woman who teaches me daily what real strength looks like." When they kissed, the bond finally fully snapped into place, not with force but with inevitability. Like coming home, like salvation. And every single one of her scars glowed silver in the moonlight. If this story gave you all the feels, please like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know in the comments which scar name was your favorite, and don't forget to check out my other supernatural romance stories. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.